Welcome. This is Impact 2022. My name is Nathaniel Watkins, and this is our continuing conversation where we talk about different issues, different relevant topics, where we just go through the gambit of what's going on today in our world from a Christian perspective, uh, because I'm a black male, oftentimes a black male perspective. This is our continuing conversation. So for those of you who have been here before, you know that this is a conversation that goes both ways. So feel free to type in your questions and your comments into the comments section, and make sure that if you have something to say, let it be known and said, and we will discuss it as it pops up. This is a conversation, so again, this goes both ways. Please feel free to put in your input. And as for those who have been here before and those who are new, this is our conversation where we touch on topics that are hot and in the news and in the know. And so today will be no different. And let's start. For those of you who are looking at this or listening to this live, looking at this live, it is February the 1st, 2022, the beginning of what historically is known as Black History Month. This month takes on a little bit of a different meaning here in 2022. It's always been a month where others, I'll say, focusing on Black history. When I say others, the black people, Black community historically learns their history all throughout the year. But for others, this is the recognition, especially in schools and educational places where they don't normally highlight Black history at a significant level on a daily basis. But it takes on a different meaning now because of the attack on Black history. And the attack on Black history that has come under the guise of things such as CRT or critical race theory, and the just onslaught of attack on Black history, where it's even gone to taking books out of schools, taking books out of the curriculum for different schools, and taking books out of actually the school libraries at different locations. It is it's a problem. It's a problem. I'll use that word as a problem. And so, as we look at the attack on Black history, especially in places like here where I'm at in Virginia, in Texas, and Arizona, in numerous states and numerous localities, there have been roadblocks put into place under the attack of CRT, and saying that Black history cannot be taught in a way or in a manner that anyone can feel discomfort or uncomfortable about what's going on. And so if as a for example, if as a white person you feel uncomfortable hearing about the horrors of slavery, and you feel guilt, and what people have called white guilt, then it doesn't need to be taught. And here in Virginia, they have a call line where you can call in and make complaints if you feel uncomfortable about Black history being taught to your children, or CRT. But they didn't specify that it had to be critical race. They specified that it's if you're uncomfortable with what's going on. And so as a result, people are now being put in positions where they can't speak freely about race and the history of race, under the cover of they think that they may get in trouble with some of these legislative bodies for what they want to do. Funding has been put on the table as far as being taken away if you talk about critical race theory. There was one such story as one school district was having a person come in to talk about race. It was going to be for February, and they canceled it just because of the fact that they were scared that there might be an issue with the whole legislation that was coming out about making sure you don't teach anything that may be considered or deemed divisive or may make somebody feel uncomfortable. So now we can't even have the conversation. And I will preface this as it's a two-pronged attack on there. it's a little bit of it's a little bit of just plain out wrong racism, I believe, but it's also a little bit of um, blowback from canceling. You can't sit around and cancel people for having conversations all of the time and then turn around and not expect that canceling to bite you back as well. And so we're not allowed to have conversations. And so that's the point that it's getting to, where you can't even talk about race because you might make somebody uncomfortable. If you can't talk about things that make you uncomfortable, oh, most of us can't talk. Um, but it's not even just, and this is Black history. It's not even just Black history at this point now. They have started to ban books um, related to Jewish history as well, the Holocaust, and they're doing it in some situations where they're using little tricks to be able to ban the history of certain groups. So Black and Jewish history, they're using, well, there's some language in here I don't like. There's some words in here that I don't think are appropriate in the scholastic environment. And so, in one such example, there was a book from a 10th grade, it was on the 10th grade reading list. It was about Black history. And they used 3 bad words. I don't know whether or not I should tell you the words, but the F word, the S word, and I think I want to say the A word. And you can decide if you want to figure out what those words are on your own. But those words were used. The 10th grader, one of the 10th graders went to his parent and said, well, I feel a little bit uncomfortable reading this book with this type of language. The father read 6 pages and then complained to the school board, who then removed the book without even reading the book. So they, the person who made the final decision even acknowledged that they didn't read the book, but took the book out because of the language. 2 observations from me. 1, 10th grade. When you're in 10th grade, I don't know who this guy's son is, but in 10th grade, you've definitely heard, all of these words, unless you're just off into a place that is very disconnected from the rest of society. So at the 10th grade level, I would expect you to have some form of maturity to be able to read these words. 2, if the words are accurately descriptive of what was going on at the time, then I think that the value is there. For example, if you had a war, a history of war, and you had a visual and audio history of war, I'm pretty sure you're going to hear some disturbing words, descriptions, see some disturbing pictures to be able to understand what happened in those processes. So should we not teach World War I, II? Should we not teach the Civil War? Should we not teach the recent Iraq War and Afghanistan because it might make people feel uncomfortable? We don't have that bar for this. So why are we doing it now with certain races? And again, I want to be very clear. This is now creeped over. This is not just an attack on Black history. Now it has become an attack on Jewish history as well, and may creep into other forms of history as well. I'm pretty sure they're licking their lips right now to get rid of Native American history because it makes people look bad and can make you feel a little bit uncomfortable when you're thinking about some of the atrocities that occurred. Trail of Tears is one of those that you can know about, and you probably should know about it, but you may not because they may ban the book. And so the question is, you sit back and you look at the young kids of today, 10-year-olds and younger, and you think as they grow up, where will they get their history from? What history will they be taught? Will they get the full encompassing of Black history? And so in Black History Month, that is one of the concerns that we have. And I'm going to switch over and talk about the church really quickly, because what we've said is that the church's responsibility sometimes is to teach these histories. And the problem is, one, we have a group of people who have decided to, an ever-growing group of people who have decided not to participate in the church, not participate in religion, in organized religion. And so they're out. So they won't be taught the history. And then you have another group who are in what I will call not in churches that are not multicultural, um, that are one way or the other. So multicultural, the way I'm going to describe it is, if your church is 60-40, either way, then you're probably multicultural. And so you're going to have enough people here who can teach history in a diverse way. 60-40, and that could be anything. 60-40, like 60% black, 40% white, 40% black, 60% white, 60% black, 40% Hispanic, or 40% Asian descent, and 60%. If you have anything that's in that realm of 60-40 split of multiculturals, then I feel like you have enough there. But it's when you're looking at a situation of when you walk into a church where it's 80%, 20%. In that sense, if you're 80%, 20%, and you're a black person, are you really going to be able to get your black history from that location? Can you expect your children to get your black history there? So, and that's not an indictment or an opinion on the church at all. That's just an assessment of, can you really expect that organization to provide your child with culturally specific and accurate information? I don't think that's really that reasonable. You don't really, if I'm a Native American and I'm in a place and it's 80-20, I'm really not going to expect them to be able to accurately address my history. And that's again, that's not a criticism of the organizations. That's just how it's set up. You don't expect somebody to be able to give that information. And so, that's where the problem comes in. Even in the church, with a multicultural church, how do you expect those individuals to get the information that they need? So they're not going to get it at the school. If you're at the right church, you might get it. If you're at church at all, you might get it. But if we eliminate it from the schools and we put a little bit of fear in just organizations in general, because now even the cultural enrichment that was going on in the corporate world, where they would bring in people to talk about topics or bring in people to make sure people were racially sensitive or racially aware. Now those are being pulled out for the same fear of being criticized. Where are the people who are not going to go grab this on their own? Where are they going to get their full history, their true history? Where are they going to get some of the black history from? TV, the internet. And so that's the question. So the attack. So it makes it even more important as we look at February, as we look at Black History Month, that we dedicate and rededicate ourselves to making sure that our history is taught by any method that we need to ensure it done. And so we need to fight the good fight to make sure that it's still taught in the schools. We need to fight the good fight to make sure that it's taught in our churches, and that's our responsibility. But also fight the good fight to make sure that it's taught anywhere and everywhere, in as much as we can do. Make sure that it's highlighted. Make sure that we continuously remind people of our history, the good, the bad, the ugly. There's plenty of good, plenty of good. There is some bad, and there's definitely some ugly, and it all needs to be taught. And so we can't continue to allow people to ban books. That is ridiculous and silly. And I get it. As a parent, I get it. There's certain books I don't want my child to read, at a young age. But in 10th grade, I think you could read a couple of cuss words there. At 10th grade, I think that you should be able to expose to some topics where you can have some mature conversation there. And so I think it is our responsibility to make sure that we get that done. And in a similar vein, let's pivot to what is also going on. But before we do, we have a comment. There is now a group of Blacks who in some sense agree with white people that we need to stop talking about racism in Black history to move forward. We need to forget about the past. Yeah. There's a lady here, Lieutenant Governor, her name is Sears, and she echoes that comment. She says, you acknowledge She acknowledged what has happened, but we need to move forward. We need to move past and beyond that. Yeah. I don't have an understanding of that position. It doesn't make sense. Why even teach history if you're just going to ignore parts and just move past the parts that you don't like? You need a complete understanding of what is going on and what's going on. And the fact that we have a group of people, a group of Black people who are going to get on board with that is disturbing. It's consistent. If you know our history, it's very consistent, but it's still disturbing. And so, because I know Black history, I know that all along the way we've had people like that who make sure to not agree. They go out of their way not to agree with what the majority of Black people want to go with. They want to have their special understanding, and so that will be a problem. That will be a fight, and we have to understand that fight will be there. That we won't be fighting people. Not only will we be fighting people who, on the merits of their race, disagree with teaching Black history at a certain level. It will be Black people as well who won't want to teach Black history at a certain level. And so that we have to definitely anticipate that fight both ways. That was a great comment, an excellent comment right there. The other thing we want to talk about is Supreme Court. And so for those of you who know or who may not know, Supreme Court Justice Breyer is retiring. He will be retiring as early as June, and will stay on until another justice is chosen. And so if you know, Supreme Court, highest court in the land, there are 9 justices right now. There are 6 justices who are considered conservative and 3 justices who are considered liberal. That has nothing to do with anything here. What is important here is that the President of the United States, Joe Biden, pledged when he was running to put in a Black woman as a Supreme Court justice. And in light of Black History Month, in light of what we've just learned about CRT, in light of everything that has gone on in the past couple of years with the enlightenment of a large part of the population when it comes to race, this is an important moment. And I would go back. She is not from the United States. She has no relation with slavery. She has no ancestry to tell about the past. And then we're talking about Lieutenant Governor Sears here in Virginia, who has made the comment that we should just move on from the race conversation, just acknowledge and move on. I think that's an important part. Sometimes, and this is going to sound bad, and hey, that's sometimes how it sounds. Sometimes when you have there has been an issue over the years sometimes of a difference between African Americans and individuals of African descent not from America. Sometimes there's some static there. Why? Myriad of reasons. But sometimes there's a lack of understanding when you have someone who is not from here, someone who did not have family or an experience of the slave trade, the slave experience, racism, Jim Crow. They don't really know intimately the process and the journey that we've gone through. And so they don't have an appreciation for the process and what we've gone through. And so sometimes their perspective is a little different. And you get a lot of international people who've come here, people of color who come here, and they tend to side on the side against what most African Americans will go with. And so they'll say, no, just get over it. We've had bad stuff happen in our country or our place of origin. This is the greatest country in the world. There's freedom and everything like that. All which is, can be considered true. But it doesn't mean that we should ignore what has gone on. As great as anybody's individual situation is and should be, it doesn't mean we need to forget the blood that was shed, the pain that was gone through to get to where we are, nor does it mean that it can't get much, much better. And so sometimes people from different backgrounds don't have that appreciation. And I think that's where this comment is coming from, because Sears is not from here per se. And so her perspective sometimes is familiar for a lot of us. It's familiar to hear people who have been imported in to say things such as that under the guise of we have the same color skin, but because our experiences aren't similar, you don't sound like us. You sound different. You know, the words the opinions and the views you have are different, and that's what I think that we have here with her telling us this information. Your views and opinions are different. You may look like me, but I don't. We're not familiar. I don't know you like that. Like, you know, and it's because you haven't been a part of this. You haven't experienced it. And so I think that's where we are. And so that may sound bad, but I believe that to be a possibility of what is going on here. And again, that's a familiar situation for many of us. But going back to the justice, so there has been some criticism because Joe Biden has said that he's going to nominate the first Black woman to the Supreme Court justice as a Supreme Court justice. Since 1789, there has been over 115 justices. None have been a Black woman. And so why the criticism? The Black female population, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it is significant here in the United States. And to think that there's no representation at the highest court in the land is ridiculous. And so there's been criticism, but the criticism is a little bit strange because, you know, back in the 80s, Ronald Reagan pledged to put the first woman into the Supreme Court. Some blowback, and I was not cognitively around for that, so I don't know the degree of blowback, but it's odd he was able to do that. So there's a reference point that pledge was made. And then just a couple of years ago, Donald Trump pledged to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg when she passed away. He pledged that I'm going to replace her with another woman. So I'm going to replace this woman, Supreme Court justice, with another woman. And there was no blowback. Now I'm here. And so I'm very clear that there was there was no significant blowback. Yet now we have senators, U.S. senators, and state representatives who are saying that to pledge to put in a Black woman is somehow wrong. It's identity politics. One senator who, if you named Ted Cruz out of Texas, you should be very embarrassed for yourself for having him there in the first place. I'll put that out there. He said that nominating a Black woman is actually an insult to Black women. And the reason he says an insult to Black women is because that means they're not even going to try to find the most qualified person, as if it is an impossibility. Now, this is me. As if it is an impossibility that a Black woman could be the most qualified person. As if the 9 Supreme Court justices right now are the most qualified people. There are more than 9 people who are qualified to be on the Supreme Court. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are qualified. The number of federal Supreme Court, so federal judges out here, number of Supreme courts throughout the different states, there are plenty of Black women who are most qualified. So, I mean, that is the most ignorant of ignorant comments when you have someone sit back and say, well, if you're going to pick a Black woman, you're not going to pick the most qualified. How dare anyone say that a Black woman is not the most qualified? So given that he made a comment to install a Black woman, he needs to keep his word. If he doesn't keep his word, the same people who are criticizing him will claim he doesn't keep his word. And that's true. Feet to the fire, he has to keep his word. I have no reason to doubt that he will put in a Black woman. But It's absolutely ridiculous that, previous presidents can say, all right, I'm gonna nominate the first woman, and you don't get all this blowback. I'm gonna nominate another woman, but as soon as you put that word black in front of woman, all of a sudden there's a problem. And so for everyone who's sitting back out here, and I'm wrapping this back around, everyone who's sitting back out here saying, oh man, you talk about race too much. CRT isn't really a real thing. It's really not a problem. It's really not that bad out here. Ask yourself why just a couple of years ago, Trump can say that I'm going to nominate a woman to replace the woman, and there's no problem. How Reagan can say I'm going to nominate the first woman, and there's, from the reports I've seen, not a significant problem. But you say black in front of a woman. I'm going to nominate the first black woman because there has been none, and they deserve. We deserve to have representation from different groups on the Supreme Court. Never been a black woman. 115 different justices and never a black woman. That's ridiculous. And why would it be offensive to say that you're going to put a black woman on there? You really have to sit back and think about why. Why is that a problem? Identity politics. No. There's plenty of men. There's plenty of white men. There are women. There's a Hispanic woman on there. So there is no problem saying, hey, we don't represent we're not representing the country. Historically or geographically, we're not representing the country. I mean, we can go on a whole nother rant about the fact that everybody on there is Ivy League, with the exception of one. So we don't need any more Ivy League people. We could say I pledge not to put another Ivy League person up there. I pledge to put somebody in that's from the deep South, because you're not really doing that. Nobody's gonna have problems with that, but for some reason you're gonna have problems if you say black woman. I say this all because, again, it's Black History Month. And there is a significant problem here in the United States still with race. And we have to acknowledge that. As great as our situation is, and I don't want to sit back here and be like, oh, this is a horrible country. I haven't lived in another country, so I don't know. I don't know what they're like. I've been to countries, been to a couple of countries here and there, but I haven't lived in another one. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I have a comparison point. But I know we got it good. But I know as Black people, we deserve to have it a little better than what we have right now. And we deserve to be able to say that a Black woman is qualified for the Supreme Court. We deserve to be able to say that a Black woman is going to be nominated for the Supreme Court and not get blowback from racist people like Ted Cruz. And if anybody gets offended by that, too bad, because that's what it is. Texas do better. And I say that, but we all of us have to do better when it comes to sometimes our representatives. But yeah. Yeah. It's frustrating. So again, as we celebrate this February, Black History Month, let's have a reminder that more than ever, we need to make sure Black History Month is not just a month. And we need to rededicate ourselves to making sure that our history is taught and that our Black women are respected. By no means should we be able to allow anyone, and that's why I will say whatever I want to say about Ted Cruz, to talk about our Black women that way. All right. That may have been a little bit harsh and a little bit mean. I apologize. Come back next week or make a comment to tell me to chill out. But again, this is Impact 2022. I am Nathaniel Watkins. I appreciate you joining us. Please continue to join us. We will be back here again on Tuesday next week at 8 o'clock at the same time. And also this month here in the same YouTube, or if you're at the website or Facebook, we will be talking about fasting all month on Thursdays at 7 o'clock. Please join us. This will be an informative and a great time and a great conversation. If you know about fasting, you're going to learn something new. If you don't know about fasting, you're really going to be put into something brand new. But please join us as we have this conversation every Thursday, 7 o'clock for the month of February. Thank you. Have a great night and join us again.